Go. Recording in progress. All right. Sarah, you see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, guys, everybody's very unfavorite thing,
Yeah,
right? How to conduct a buyer representation initial consultation. Why? Why are we doing this video?
a lot of Asians.
We went over
A
that.
lot of Asians, yeah.
Consultation.
Why are we doing this one today?
People skip it altogether.
A lot of people skip it altogether. What's gonna happen in July?
That's it. Right, so when I list,
We're not gonna get paid in
June, yeah, we're, unless,
Do you get paid anymore?
unless there's
Yeah.
concessions, right?
Right.
That's the word, concessions.
But what must every single buyer have before they go see
BRBC.
a house now? They
Not until
must-
July.
Not until July, if everything moves forward the way that it's planned.
Right.
And if the judge accepts our settlement conditions, one of the conditions is no longer to show buyers anything without a buyer representation agreement in place. Can't open a door for anybody, even if you're a listing agent and they call you, and they're like, yeah, I'd like to call the listing agent, can I see the house? Gotta have buyer representation, or they have to waive representation and move forward as an unrepresented buyer.
Oh.
Okay,
Do we have a form for that?
yeah, they're probably going to have a form for
Right.
that, yes. But I mean,
Well, I mean,
can you imagine working with a fully unrepresented buyer,
No, I don't wanna.
right?
Well,
Because they're
that's-
gonna screw that contract up really bad, right? What do you think's gonna happen when you send them a notice to perform on day 15 to remove their contingencies on day
they
17?
have to go,
And they look at you with cross-eyed and go, what's a contingency? And where did you do your home inspection? Oh, I was supposed to do a home inspection? I mean, that's basically what's gonna happen if they're unrepresented.
Can I ask, if, okay, so this place on Denison Mountain Air, I'm gonna list that probably next week, right?
Okay.
So what happens when you list something like that? And then the thing goes through and nobody's bought it yet, so then what, like?
So yeah, once we get whatever that date in July is, everything's gonna change on that date.
So the you have to
We're get-
redo whatever it is on the MLS?
Yeah, the MLS is we're probably just going to lose the compensation section on the MLS, probably just gonna disappear over.
What are you listing that one for?
219.
Yeah, so that,
It's 1,900 square feet, didn't we agree on that price?
we talked about it.
Yeah, we agreed on it.
Hey.
We all went there and agreed.
the mobile park?
Yeah,
that's
it's huge, it's, you know how all mobile homes are like A and B?
It's
This
a
is
nice
A,
one.
B, C, D, yeah,
It's
it's huge,
four units.
Yeah.
4 trailers.
and it's,
Yeah.
one side is next to the, like, if you have, store, like, a couple things are in this parking lot, so you really only have one neighbor.
Okay, so we're gonna, go ahead, finish up.
Okay.
All right, we good? No, finish up, go ahead.
But
Okay,
you were
we're-
talking about, so then you've got compensation on this listing agreement, then July 15th comes up. What happens? Does that have to be renegotiated or?
It doesn't necessarily have to be renegotiated. We will have 2 forms. One form is gonna be for listings and another form is gonna be for buyer representation agreements that are amendments to the ones that we will have currently in place
Okay.
that will reflect the changes. And we'll say if there's already a pre-written agreement of compensation,
Right.
then it will hold true.
Oh,
So we will
okay.
there will be amendments to.
Like if it's in the middle of
existing-
escrow.
Yeah, if it's in the middle of listing, if it's in the middle of buyer rep
Okay.
agreement, if
Right.
you have things that are active when the switch happens, then you're
It
gonna have to
stays.
amend every single one of them. But it's not gonna stay on the MLS, it's gonna drop off.
Right,
the
right.
MLS. Yeah, as far as the offer of compensation. Okay, so if all buyers need to have representation before they go look at a house, then whoever puts together the better buyer representation consultation is gonna end up getting all the buyers, right? I mean, we gotta be good at it. We're gonna have to figure out how to get good at this process. You're not gonna be able to just show up at the house with the buyer rep agreement in your
Asking
hand,
people to pay
Yeah,
you
and say-
3% or whatever
Yeah,
it
and
is
sign
for
this.
showing them, yeah.
right? So we're going to have to figure out how to change and get them into the office. How to change our language on the phone and get them into the office. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, you can just blame me. right? In the beginning, you can just say, my broker says that I have to.
Mm-hmm.
And you might get pushback, right? And then they're gonna call somebody else and that person's gonna do the same thing. Well, what we don't want to have happen is our agents say, well, look, we need to have a buyer representation agreement, so I'm just gonna send one to you real quick on DocuSign, just go ahead and sign it. Because then you're gonna end up having people that feel like you
Misled.
didn't even talk to them about it. They don't even know what they're signing. And now, wait a second, what do you mean? Now I'm locked in for 3%, 2.5%?
So do you talk to the listing agent first before, I mean, like, what comes, I mean, I know you gotta talk to them about.
So what do you mean?
Setting up the
Finish your
appointment?
sentence. Finish your sentence. Do you talk to the listing agent about what? About compensation?
Yeah,
Absolutely. You're gonna have to reach out to all these listing agents now and say, is the seller offering any kind of compensation in the form of concessions?
right, before you have them sign the BRBC?
No, your
No.
BRBC is gonna have to be signed because your BRBC is gonna cover you and your buyer for all the houses you look at. Not just for every specific house.
So can you say like, let's negotiate like 2.5% and there may be concessions that the seller is willing.
Correct, yeah, we'll get into all of that.
Here I go jumping. forward.
Jumping the gun again. Yes, you are going to set, so we're just gonna talk about the consultation today. Next week, we'll go into a deep dive of the actual buyer representation agreement. That'll more answer that question completely of what happens if I have a 2.5, but they are giving compensation. Yeah, there's a mathematical formula that will be.
And like you charge 3, so like,
Yes, so so if you have a representation agreement for 3 and Maggie's offering 2.5, then your buyer's still on the hook for 0.5%. Now, here's where it's different now. Let's say you're trying to be sneaky and snag all the buyers by saying, hey, I'll do it for $800.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you have a buyer rep with Lacey for $800. Maggie has a listing and her seller is willing to compensate 2.5%. How much are you gonna make? 2.5% or $800?
Eight.
You're gonna
I think
make
it's eight.
$800.
yeah, because the,
No,
because
because
the selling agent's the default, right?
No, you're gonna
No?
make $800. Her 2.5%, she only has to give 800 of it. The seller only has to
Well,
give.
that's what I'm saying, like, this is the agreement, so
Correct.
this.
And the new language in the new agreements are going to state any overage offered by the seller stays with the seller. It doesn't go to the agent. So this is how we're going to keep buyers agents from trying to undercut everybody with their representation agreements. So you're not going to be able to say, oh, so-and-so is charging 3, I only charge 1, in the hopes that you can go find 2.5 somewhere. Not gonna happen. Whatever you agree with your buyer is the maximum that you can be paid.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense? Did I say it better that time? That made more sense that time?
Yeah, you
Okay,
just
cool.
made it click.
Click, yeah, I made it go click. Okay, so we have spoken to our potential buyer on the phone. We've convinced them that, hey, we have to do a buyer, consultation. We have to develop some kind of an agreement between us before I can go show you a home. So what do we do? Pre-meeting preparation. So we're going to review all that communication. Where could that communication come from? Could have been a telephone call direct to you, could have been a text message to you, could come through a website, could come from a referral. Whatever it is, make sure that you're reviewing it so that you can prepare correctly. This is a kind of a cool little thing that number 3 there, check social media if appropriate for additional personal insights. What could you find out by looking at somebody's social media that they might not tell you in that very initial contact?
If they like dogs, cats, kids, mountain hiking, swimming, surfing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So stalk them on social media, right? Especially if they have children. That would be a key one to know, right? Kind of get yourself set up for what are they into? What is their activities? If they're very active people, maybe they don't want to be at the top of their valley. Maybe they want to be down lower, or maybe they want to be where they can access if they're avid outdoor folks. Maybe you want to keep them close to Highway 14 so they can go to Jawbone Canyon or whatever. I don't know. Who knows? So check their social media. So you want to get all the information you can possibly get on your potential buyer, so that later, when you talk to them, you relate with them, because this is going to be a who relates the best and who relates the fastest kind of a situation. You know, kind of just like it is with the seller. Think of it like going into a listing presentation, right? You got 3 minutes to win that thing. You either win it in the first 3 minutes, or the next hour is just a waste of your time, right? You gotta nail it. Documentation. So prepare your BRBC, right? We're going to call it a BRA here because that's just more of a general term, but a BRBC is what we call it in California, Buyer Representation Compensation Agreement. So make sure you get all your forms ready to go. And it's possible you might even have some listings to show them and a market analysis, kind of like almost like a CMA for your people. But instead of getting a price opinion for one particular property like you would with the CMA, you're kind of doing a complete market analysis, letting them know. Like right now, for example, Terry had somebody call the other day and said they're looking for a 4-bedroom house and they'd like to keep it under 400,000. And I got off the phone with her and I walked over there and I'm like, or she got off the phone, I walked over there. I'm like, that's a hard ask right now. You know, like 400,000, it's not a lot of nice houses. Anything under 400,000 right now is, especially at 4 bedrooms,
Cabin.
it's gonna be a little, it's gonna be either a cabin or it's gonna be pretty beat up. So, you know, you kind of get an idea of what they're looking for. Bring out a few different properties, do a market analysis, be able to tell them, hey, right now in this market, you got to be at 450 to hit a decent looking house. So set goals. You guys know how much I love setting goals and setting expectations. So define what your objectives are for the meeting. You want this meeting to end with a signed BRB. That's the whole point of this thing. You want to end this meeting with a relationship established. You want to end this meeting with them knowing that you're their agent and them understanding that anything they do from that moment forward comes through you. Whether they go to open houses, whether they're looking at stuff on the internet, they better not be calling listing agents and getting information. They better be calling you to get all the information. The BRBC establishes your duties, your role as their agent, right? As their fiduciary, the word that we love to toss around. All the things that you're supposed to be doing for them. And then logistics. Where is this meeting going to take place? All right. Ultimately, you'd probably want to do it here in the office, at your desk, at a quiet desk in a quiet corner. Where else could you do this meeting? Coffee shop. Where else? Zoom, virtually, right? You can do these virtually, very easy. Make sure if you're going to do them virtually, that unlike me this morning with the cameras, get everything all set up, make sure your microphone's working, your camera's working, make sure your Zoom is working, and make sure you have a clear understanding of, you know, where your Zoom address is so that they have it ahead of time. Confirm your meeting, right? Reach out to your client the day of. Hey, see you today, later at 3, right? You always want to make sure that they confirm because your guys' time is valuable. You don't want to be sitting at the coffee shop with the no-show. You don't want to be sitting here, drive all the way into the office, get all set up, and then you got a no-show. So those are some of the key things before we get to the meeting. All right, so when we get to the meeting, again, we've already stalked them on social media. We've already had the initial call. We kind of should know a little bit about them before we go into this thing. Building rapport is key, right? Building rapport. What is the best way to build rapport? What are your guys' ideas? I don't have a clear answer on that. What are your guys' idea of the best way to build rapport?
Make them laugh. Engage with them.
Make them laugh? Yeah, humor and laughter is like one of the most disarming things you can have in an uncomfortable
I tell
situation.
stories about stuff that I know in the area, or hey, did you know that was, I just.
Sure.
I try to find
Laughing.
something to relate, like
Fun
if,
fact.
if they're like, oh, I come from Redondo Beach. Oh, I used to live there when I just try to find some kind of commonality.
Absolutely.
That you can.
See, that's a restaurant industry thing.
Mm,
Has to be, because that's me too. I'm
Yeah.
like, I gotta find something about
Right.
them that I know,
Yeah,
that I can relate to.
Yeah. yeah.
Yeah, so laughter, information, right, education, telling them
And
about the
asking them
area.
questions. People like to
Yeah.
talk about themselves. The more questions you ask, especially when it comes to
Yeah. most
probably
people like to
kids
talk
and
about it.
animals. People love to talk about their kids and their animals.
Yeah. So it says there on number 2, there under build rapport, engage in brief small talk, right? To ease into the meeting, but it's also a way to build that rapport. Building rapport, what is the one thing that we're trying to establish?
A relationship,
Well, yes, but what?
trust.
Trust.
Mhm.
Trust is what we're trying to establish, right? They need to be able to trust you, that you're the expert, that you need to let them understand that they don't know anything and you know everything when it comes to real estate, right? So we're trying to build that trust, because everybody will tell you, you know, do you think you understand the real estate market? Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm on Zillow every day. I know what market, they don't know jack, right? And then that doesn't even get into the transaction. Clueless. They don't have access to our contracts. They're absolutely, you know, they have no clue. So we have to build that trust. We have to, you know, let them understand that they need us. Right? Because that's what we hear all the time right now, especially with home sellers and FSBOs. I don't need a real estate agent. I don't need a real estate agent. You guys are useless. You're overpaid. You all just have beautiful social media, tired of seeing all the purses you buy, all the shoes you have, the cars you drive, the wine you drink. That's what they all say, right? They don't need us. No, you guys do need us. And this is our time. And what's happening with this settlement is we're being forced to show our value again. We're being forced back into a position where we have to stop being influencers and start being professionals again. All right, that's just kind of happening. All right, so outline your approach to the buyer representation, emphasizing your commitment to the buyer's interest. So understand your buyer representation agreement, understand your presentation that you're going to be doing to them. Make sure you have it all outlined. Stay on point. Go step by step through it. This is a step-by-step guide, so I'm going to stick to it. And you need to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you have a beginning, a middle, and an end to your buyer rep agreement. Don't wing it. Okay, if you wing it, you're going to end up out on a limb, and there's not going to be a net underneath you, and you're going to lose that appointment. All right. Okay, a needs assessment. So you have them in there, you're engaging, you're asking them questions, discussing, why are we here? What are you trying to get out of this? I'm trying to move to Tehachapi. Okay, great. Tell me more about that. Where are you coming from? Why are you moving here? Maybe I live down in LA and there's nothing that's affordable and it looks affordable up here. All right, let's talk about affordability. Ask those open-ended questions, get as much information as you can out of people, and try to find out what their primary objectives are and their needs are, like location, type of property, budget, timeline. Timeline's a big one. Okay. Are you waiting till school is out? Are you trying to get in before school is in? Are you trying to get into a house before the holidays? What's your goals? We do have some forms for that. You guys have seen our buyer needs assessment in our buyer packets that we have, but those are actually becoming real forms. They'll be released in June. There's both the financial needs of your buyer, and then there's an actual material needs form of your buyer. So we want to make sure that we're using those forms and getting a list of all the things, right? Because it's kind of, who remembers who was here when I showed the buyer rep appointment with the agent from Florida, and her famous quote was, if I ask you 5 questions, I have to show you 500 properties. So today I'm going to ask you 500 questions so that I only have to show you 5 properties. That's kind of the mentality that you want to take into this. You want to ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. If they can't go up and down stairs, don't show them a 2-story house. Don't show them a split level house. Okay. If you see them hobbling in the door, they want to live in a ranch style house. If they have 3 kids, don't show them 2 bedrooms. Okay, so, ask the questions so that you make sure that you're bringing value back to them. And then priority setting, so help the buyer differentiate between their needs and their wants. Right? That's huge. A lot of people want everything. Kind of like that joke that was on social media for a while. Oh, you want 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a pool, a family room, a living room, horse property, and you want it all for 200,000? Yeah, I think I have that. Oh, it sold in 1979. Sorry. So same kind of thing. Make sure you really differentiate between things that are must-haves, your needs, and the things that are just wants and dreams. Because we all dream at some point in time. When we go look for a house, we all dream a bit until we realize we can't fit that into our budget. So then you want to establish clear priorities. That makes the search and the decision making process a lot easier. It keeps you on track. Nobody wants to be a tour guide. Nobody wants to show people houses that they don't have any, any business trying to buy. So we want to keep them focused. Okay. This is the part where we have a lot of value to bring. Education on the buying process. So even in our packets that we have up front now, both for our sellers and our buyers, we found some really great sheets from escrow company that details the entire process of the transaction from the escrow point of view. We also need to make sure that they understand all the steps that are involved from their point of view and how we coordinate things. So again, if we have buyers representing themselves, they probably don't understand that it's up to them to get a home inspection. And then who would they call? And then if the home inspector says that the roof is questionable, then who do they call? So we have a huge role in that process as far as lining all that kind of stuff up. And then explaining to them that they have to have their EMD in, that EMD is protected as long as they have a contingency in place. So we need to explain that in the process, right? So yeah, guys, here's all your needs and wants. Great. Let me kind of walk you through this whole transactional process. And when you're doing that, pause, ask them, do you have any questions? Give yourselves more opportunity to explain the process in more detail, because it makes you seem like you know what you're talking about. You're the expert in the field, that they need you, and that you're here to represent them. Okay. Educate the buyer on financing options and the importance of a mortgage pre-approval. Huge, great time to start talking about your team. If you have a team, right? Your team of inspectors and vendors, but also your team of lenders. These are my preferred people, whether you're using Gail next door or Jeff or Kevin or whomever you're using. A great time to start talking about the pre-approval. Right. And especially in this market, why in this market where there's not a lot of houses and a lot of buyers, why is the pre-approval really huge? What would you say to somebody about the importance of it? Lacey?
It's important to be prepared if you find the house that you really like, that you're ready to write that offer, what your numbers are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You got to be prepared to pull the trigger. You needed to say that to them. And that's, again, the next line down. Discuss current market conditions and how they impact the buying process, such as levels of inventory and average time on market. Inventory is low, a lot of buyers. If we're out there just looking and you're not pre-approved and you find a house you like and it takes 2 or 3 days to get pre-approved, adios, house.
Somebody's gonna snap it up.
Goners. Right?
And how many people takes 3 days to get a mortgage approval? I mean, usually you can do it in
People try to go through like
Their banks.
their computer, like, oh, we'll get you approved, and then, they're like, oh, I'm getting approved, but they don't tell, and then like, oh, they haven't gotten back to me, and I'm like, well, who is it? Because I have somebody that can do it in a day.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, it's just through the computer, like when you go on
Rocket,
Zillow.
Rocket.
Yeah. And
Sure.
it's like,
And then what's the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval? Right? The pre-qual you can get in 15 minutes.
Right.
Absolutely agree.
Get
Your
blood,
pre-qual.
get
But your
oxygen.
but your pre-approval can take a little longer because you have to show them bank statements, W-2s, pay stubs. So it's harder to get a pre-approval. But if you're a smart buyer's agent, you can explain to a listing agent, hey, I don't have a pre-qual, I got a pre-approval.
Mm.
Let alone a fully underwritten pre-approval. oh, that's beautiful, because now you can close that a little bit quicker, right? So again, discussing that, there's another opportunity to discuss that with your buyer. Do you know the difference between a pre-qual, a pre-approval, and a fully underwritten pre-approval? They're gonna say, no, I thought it was all the same. Well, here's the differences. So between now and the time we start looking for houses, here's my lender, start working on your fully underwritten pre-approval. Well, your offers are gonna be so much easier to win. So much easier to win. Okay. Explanation of the buyer rep agreement. This is gonna be the hard part for a lot of you guys. Why is this hard for agents to explain? What is the one thing in it that makes all real estate agents shiver?
Money.
Money. Right? Compensation.
Because you have to get that out of the way, and it's really unfortunate because there's really, you don't have to talk about money. It's right there. You get 3%, and now you have to. And that's, it makes you seem like an opportunist in a way if you don't go about it gracefully.
Yeah, it can be very difficult. The hardest thing that people do is sell themselves. We can sell everything except for ourselves. Yet, we go into a listing appointment, we all seem to do a pretty good job. Although I know a lot of agents go in thinking, well, let's try to see, old numbers. Let's see if we can get 6% today, and they walk out with 4.5%, right? Because we're all the first ones to just start slashing away at our own commissions because we're trying to get
Oh,
the
I do
deal.
that every single, yeah.
Yeah, right. You walk in, go, I'm gonna get 2.5 on this one, and walk out with 2.
I'll
Right?
slash a commission just to make the sale.
Yeah, exactly. So now flip this with buyers. It's even harder. It's even harder now because you're, again, aware and afraid that they'll just go to the next buyer's agent and they'll go say, well, so-and-so over there wanted to charge me 2.5%. So I'm coming to you, I'm looking for 2. Well, I'll take it, right? Because 2% of something's better than 0% of anything, right? So you're gonna take it. This is where it gets really difficult, though. You guys have to make sure that you're, that you're bulletproof on this presentation. If you're bulletproof on this presentation, then the compensation should just be a side note. If you're building and establishing a relationship and rapport, you are the industry leader, and they see you as somebody who understands what they're talking about, they're going to want to work with you. Just like I used to say back in the day, when you're showing houses, you're not selling the house, you're selling yourself. Because you want to make sure that if they don't want to buy that house, when they go to the next house, that they're going to come back to you, right? So we're selling ourselves, we're selling our worth, we're selling our knowledge. So emphasize how the representation agreement protects the buyer's interest throughout the buying process. Sally Lawrence once told me that if you don't have a representation agreement in place, you actually carry more of a responsibility to the owner of each home that you're taking this unrepresented buyer through than you do to that buyer. Just through our code of ethics, right? We have an obligation to the public in each one of those listings, and to the listing agent, and to that home seller. We have 0 representation when we take an unrepresented, buyer without an agreement in place. So you bring a buyer in and you have an agreement with them. Now you have a legal contract stating to that buyer that I'm representing you here fiduciarily into the best of my abilities. So you want to walk through the representation, sorry, the BRBC in detail, clarifying each section. Most big things to talk about, whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive. I got a feeling we're probably going to be using the non-exclusive option the most, which does give unilateral cancellation, right? One side or the other can decide to back out of this thing. They're not locked in. You want to talk about the duration of the agreement. That's really big. And then you want to talk about whether it's all encompassing as far as any property or the specific properties that we're showing today, right? You can always modify and amend your representation agreements. So it's, again, I have a feeling that in the beginning, we're probably going to see a lot of shorter ones that are property specific until you guys get stronger and better at your presentation. Then I have a feeling we'll start seeing ones that last longer and ones that are for all the properties that we see in Tehachapi, not the ones that we're just gonna see today. You guys are gonna build that relationship over time. Okay, let's see, highlight any terms specific to your brokers that may be unique or particularly advantageous for your buyer. You want to just highlight anything about why they're not working just with you, but they're also working with Country Real Estate. I know with Terry, she talks all the time about, I work with a team of professionals. I do the same thing. I love going into a listing agreement with another agent, because then I can talk about the team aspect of what we do, the support aspect. If you guys want to use me as a value proposition, totally okay. I would be flattered, of course, but you want to talk about the things that are specific. Sometimes it's, hey, we're Country Real Estate. We've been, in the community since '87. We're family owned and operated. We do things a little bit differently.
I like to throw that around sometimes.
Absolutely. We
That
treat
my
you like
parents-
family.
That my parents,
Yeah, that you're
really
second generation.
litters, even though I've only been in it for 2 years.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. it doesn't
Actually,
matter.
you were in longer than you think. Being.
Listening to them
Yeah.
my whole life,
Yeah,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Okay, during your presentation, ask the buyer to ask you questions about the representation agreement. Clear up any uncertainties. All right, gives you an opportunity to, again, be the authority. Make sure they fully understand this agreement. And how does that start? It starts by you guys fully understanding the agreement.
So if somebody asked, why did this happen? Like, what's a good way of telling them that is sort of like, doesn't make it seem like,
So if you want to explain to them why we are where we are, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously you.
if they ask,
You would mention the NAR lawsuit, and it's essentially that, and this is, I think, a really good way to also show you different than everybody else. I would say, due to the lack of transparency, due to the lack of educated agents explaining in complete detail how compensation has been paid throughout the years, sellers felt like they were being taken advantage of. So now through this lawsuit, we've uncoupled the commissions, the compensation. We actually start calling it compensation now. And now the seller pays the seller and the buyer pays the buyer. So this is me telling you, see how transparent I'm
Right.
being about this,
okay,
right? So now everything I walk in now to a listing agreement and they say, well, I tell them, look, I can negotiate with you what I'm going to charge you. What you're going to offer, if anything, is entirely up to you now. I'm going to be so transparent about it and have a long conversation about it. Not only does it make them feel comfortable that they get to decide what they want to do, but you're telling them, hey, look, no smoke, no mirrors. It's raw. It is what it is. I'm being dead honest with you. And that way I'm building trust. And I'm building trust right out of the get-go. They know they can trust me. Terry.
However, you don't want those sellers to think that buyers are just going to be brought to their house by agents to look at their house if they're not going to be
Right.
in the same.
Correct.
And so in the past, the sellers did not realize, didn't realize or were explained that part of the 5% went to marketing and bringing in the agents, so the agents who work very hard with buyers, especially here,
Mhm.
they work for years sometimes.
With buyers.
With buyers.
Yeah.
And so, they couldn't pay. Well, how do you?
What a concept. It's not gonna
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you do
I-
that when you're in your listing. We'll kind of jump shift here a little bit and talk about the listing. When you're talking about compensation in the listing and you say to the buyer, hey, it's completely up to you, whether it's 0 or a number, just realize there's pitfalls with
Yeah.
offering 0.
I had
Oh yeah,
that
what are the
conversation.
pitfalls? Well, the pitfalls are
Yeah.
you're not incentivizing any agents to bring anybody
how did
to
that
this
conversation
transaction.
go?
You have buyers out
It
there
went
that can
well.
barely afford down payment and closing costs, and now you're expecting them to pay a buyer's commission too. Those buyers are not going to come to your house.
Yeah.
So somewhere between 0 and what we used to do is up to you.
Mhm.
And we will talk, I mean, so that's a conversation, I mean, this is a long conversation. This isn't something you just kind of slide by, right? You want to have that conversation, and they might ask you, well, what do you think? What do you think's fair? And then you're gonna have to use your knowledge, it's gonna depend on the list price. What do you think is fair? Is it, if you got a $700,000 house, is it fair for it to be 3% and they make 21K? Is it 2% good on the 700,000, making 14,000? I don't know. And part of my conversation with them, I had this the other day. I said, "Shit, I remember a day when I was starting in this business. I got $5,000-6,000 commission. I was like, heck yeah, that's awesome." Now, all these new agents that come in post-COVID, if they're not making 15,000, they're getting upset. And I kind of look at them and go, what's wrong? There's a disconnect there. So somewhere between what I used to make and what they're making now, somewhere in there is probably a good spot, right? So they're going to have to come to that realization. Now, can they change that number, or are they locked in when they sign the listing agreement? No, they can change it.
Yeah.
Modification of terms, right? So if we put it on the market and we're finding that everybody's complaining about the amount of compensation or the lack of compensation or whatever the case might be, let's sit down and have a conversation with your seller. Hey, the feedback we're getting is, I don't want to come look at the house because you're not offering enough. So what do you want to do?
Yeah, but they can't change it after you get a buyer in though, right?
No, not once you get but not once you get a buyer in, but that's all going to be decided now in the offer. Yeah, so everybody would have to agree to something like we do now, right? We've been in contracts before where we're this close to making a deal. Who's the first people to start giving up money to make the deal work? Yeah, Julie. Yeah, we call Julie and say, can we borrow some of your next commissions so I can close this deal? Right? All right. So yeah, get some clarity on the agreement, because they're never going to sign anything that they don't understand. All right, now, next step, setting up the search. So we're going to confirm all of our search criteria based on their assessment earlier, ensure that the criteria is specific and aligned with their priorities, right? Items like location, price, property features, and then introduce them to how the various technologies work, right? Do we send them to Zillow? Probably the bottom of my list, since it's never really fully accurate. What is a public website that's highly accurate? Tehachapi Real Estate is a great one. So is Realtor.com. Why is Realtor.com highly accurate? Anybody know? So a little background on Realtor.com.
Run by agents.
Yeah,
to start.
basically, yeah, it was, it
Westlake Village.
originally started as something that NAR owned.
Mhm.
Okay, 100%. NAR started Realtor.com. Okay, now NAR sold a large chunk of it to a private company so that they could pocket money from their beautiful thing that they had developed. We owned still a percentage of it. But one of the mandates in that purchase agreement from the company and NAR was that all associations that are NAR associations, like TARC, for example, must continue to syndicate their information. So Realtor.com reaches out to our MLS every 15 minutes and updates and updates and updates and updates. So when a property goes pending, it updates. When a property sells, it updates. When a property is listed, it updates.
I almost don't even, I go on our MLS for a second, but Realtor.com, because there's so many out of area agents.
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly. And that's what, to Terry's comment over there, that's why I would disagree, which I rarely do with Terry. Why our MLS is not very accurate up here, because it's probably only picking up 75% of the properties that are actually for sale. Right? Because we got agents coming up from Bakersfield, from Antelope Valley, from Santa Clarita. They do not want to pay the money to join our MLS.
Yeah, the telltale sign for me is, and I've had this so much lately, is, oh, I saw this house and it's really great. And I'm like, I don't remember seeing that on the MLS, because it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Yeah.
So putting them in a portal on our MLS is only going to show them a small percentage.
Why the heck
of
should
what's
I pay all
available.
these exorbitant MLS fees to Tehachapi?
Yeah.
I can just go to Realtor.
It's a really good question. Somebody should bring it up in an MLS committee meeting in the near future.
Yeah, they'll kick me
Um,
out.
So again, even our website is probably the second most accurate. Because we syndicate from Bakersfield, Gavar, Tehachapi, and SRA, our CRMLS. But there still might be some boutique somewhere that doesn't put it on CRMLS that would still show up. But you're probably gonna get like 99% coverage using TehachapiRealEstate.com. And then again, Realtor.com. So you probably want to show them how to use a Realtor. You probably want to show them how to use our website. If they're using our website, they have an account, we can see what they're opening. We can see every property that they're looking at. We can see how many times they're on the site, right? And if you can see what they're looking at, then that gives you ample opportunities to follow up. Make that follow-up call. So you want to show them how everything works. Okay, and then you want to make sure that you know how to communicate with them, build a communication plan. Whether it's going to be email, phone, or text, what's their most popular form? If they love emails, don't text them all day. If they're older and they don't like text messaging, call them, right? And then again, there's always that levels of communication that we've talked about in the past. I think it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? The bottom level is email. Then the next one is text messaging, and then the next one's telephone calls, and then the next one's virtual, and then the next one's face-to-face, right? Face-to-face is the highest level of communication. Why? Why is face-to-face and virtual higher than text messaging?
Cause
You
it's
can
a
sense
person.
Tone and body language.
Body language, yeah, tone and body language, absolutely, 100%, right, spot on.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we always want to communicate at the highest level that we possibly can, but we also want to make sure that we're communicating in the method that they prefer. Okay, so you want to make sure you have a clear communication plan. Okay, action plan and next steps. So our immediate next steps, outline the immediate actions to be taken following the meeting, such as, hey, let's schedule and go out and look. And let's work with that mortgage broker or lender for your pre-approval. Okay, discuss the process of making offers and negotiating terms. You can do that in your meeting if you want, or you can do it in a follow-up meeting. But let them know, this is how I like to make offers. This is basic framework of my offer, so that, and you can go through the contract with them ahead of time, so that when you are ready to make offers, it's a whole lot easier to just say, all right, I'll write it up right now. All those terms we talked about, I'll make sure you get your pest, I'll make sure you get your septic, I'll make sure this, that, and the other, that we're protected, our contingencies are in place. Then you can feel comfortable just writing the offer and sending it to them to sign, because they've already had that conversation with you. You've already kind of explained the contract to them. So I would do that ahead of time before you write that first offer. Because guys, I really don't want you sending offers without explaining the contracts. And they're just going click, 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 click. Then they're fully uninformed. And then you're not showing your value and you're not building trust. You're actually doing the opposite. Like, oh, it's there, it's in your email, just sign it. Trust me,
Mhm.
right? Bad news. Okay, long-term strategy. So develop a long-term strategy for finding the ideal property, especially if the buyer's needs are complex or the market conditions are challenging. So if there's nothing out there that matches their needs, how are you going to stay in touch with them? How are you going to continue to let them know that you're their go-to, and we're just waiting for the right property
Phone
to
calls,
show up?
like I have a list right now, yeah,
Yeah.
phone calls, video messages.
Video messages are powerful. I know Terry started doing those. Who else has started doing
I
video
haven't started
messages?
Doing it, I want to.
I'm
but then I
Yeah,
just,
let's do a
I've
video
done one.
message today.
I've done one, and they are a little bit nerve-wracking.
It
Right.
feels weird.
Feels a little weird.
Cause I get them from a title rep in Santa Clarita, and even when I watch hers, it's kind of giggle.
Kind of giggle a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You snicker?
yeah. It's just funny sending a message that way. It's not.
Yeah, but it could be, because like,
No, I think
we
it's really
haven't
cute.
met them yet, like you
Yeah.
could just say, hey, it's Darla, just letting you know I'm still on it.
No, I think it's a
looking for-"
really
It
great
doesn't have to be long or anything, just
Doesn't
be
have
like,
to be long.
I think it's
and then they
really
can
good.
put a face with the voice and the.
You guys
and the-
wanna see one?
Sometimes you
Yeah.
snicker, and anytime I've ever watched one, I've said to myself, God, that was good. Why don't I do that more?
Mm.
That's usually what runs through my head when I see one. So it's usually a sign that I should do them. Yeah, video messaging is
All
really
right.
good.
Sellers in your sphere. Do you want to find people within your own sphere of influence that can't wait for interest rates to come back down or for the market to improve? People that must sell? or selling despite this market? What makes a homeowner sell? Life events place homeowners in spots where they can't wait for a better market to sell, or they sell despite the market. I want to show you a tool that scores prospects in your own sphere of influence that are using algorithms and process life event data.
So this is not
Timing is
like
everything in the real
Yeah, it's
estate
kind of, I would say that that's long and it's also very generic. I would definitely personalize it.
Yeah, this would be something that
Yeah.
yeah,
See, instead of saying, hey there, I would say that, hey, Lacey, it's good to hear from you again. So she's building one and just sending it out to everybody. I would say personalize it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Be like,
never wants to say
yeah.
my name.
Absolutely. Be like, hey, Trace, it's great to, I just wanted to send you this quick message. Personal. Right? And then be happy. Be happy. Don't be like, hey, Trace, I was just letting you know that the market still sucks. Yeah. Be positive about it for sure. Okay. And then discuss contingency plans such as what to do if the property choices are not available. So everybody has a motivation level at some point. For some people, the motivation may not be the property features as much as it is time. And you're sometimes might come to an intersection where time getting into the property becomes a higher priority than all the features. So, okay, guys, we got to get you in by September. If we can't find the perfect property by late July, we're going to have to come sit down and reassess what we're trying to do here. Is it really going to be important to find the house with the pool, or are you cool just going to the local pool or Bear Valley or whatever, right? So things like that. Put a contingency plan. Give them we're going to try to get you A, but if not, here's our plan B. And then again, huge. I'm always really huge on setting realistic expectations about the timeline and potential challenges in the current real estate market. The thing I think so many agents do that drives me absolutely insane, promise the moon and can't deliver, right? You gotta keep your expectations attainable. I'd rather have you guys overshoot all day than to fall short. And don't be afraid. Be honest about it. Be like, I mean, when I'll talk to somebody, it's like, why are we selling this house? Is it because, what's more important to you, speed or dollar? And they go dollar. All right, cool. You want top dollar? It's going to take forever. Are you cool with that? Right? Don't say I can get you top dollar and I can do it in a week. Right? If you want me to sell it in a week, cool. Just understand we're going to sell it under market value. You cool with that? Right? Let them know. Don't paint a picture that doesn't exist.
Under
Okay.
promise, over deliver.
Under promise, over deliver every single time, and just be straight about it, and then throw it back on them. I'm not going to be able to do that. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Oh well. So no, they can't. They can't do it either. They don't have a magic rabbit in their hat. Neither do I. Be honest about the process. Okay. Make sure your buyer understands the importance of flexibility and patience throughout the buying process. Patience. There are certain things in this industry that are out of our control. Name one.
Title problems?
Title problems. Name another one. Inspection schedules, insurance, appraisals. There are a lot of things that are out of my control. They may delay the process. But the things that I can control, I will deliver as quickly as I can. But there are other things that I can't. I just went through that one on Adelante. It was almost 70 days, 75 days, because we found out later that the foundation certification wasn't good enough. We needed a 433A. That took 3.5 weeks for the guy to come strap it all down and record it. Out of my control, buyer. Right? We didn't know. So, but they're cool because of communicating the whole time. Hey, I'm trying to get you in here as soon as I can. It's been 4 days, still haven't heard anything. It's been 4 days, still haven't heard anything. So is it okay to update your client with still haven't heard anything? I know nothing. Or do you just ghost them? Right? You call them and you let them know. Unfortunately, nothing has changed. Okay, then closing your meeting. You're sitting with them. It's time for them to go home. Recap the main discussion and agreements made. Make sure everybody understands. Hey guys, before we finish, I just want to make sure, do you have any final questions? Is there anything that I didn't explain clearly enough Are we good? Okay, make sure that everybody understands each step of the process, including any responsibilities that the buyer needs to fulfill moving forward. What would be a responsibility that they need to fulfill? Financing, financing. Make that call to the lender. Okay. Sign the documents if the buyer is ready. Facilitate the signing of the representation agreement and any other necessary paperwork. Okay, and explain the significance of each document, of course, yes. And then express appreciation. Thank them for their time and for choosing you as their representative. Express enthusiasm about working together, all right? Make it sound like this is the first one you've ever got. Remember that feeling, first transaction? Remember your first
When my
transaction?
client died.
Not you, we won't talk to you.
Right.
Maggie, what about you? Do you still remember your first transaction?
No.
No?
Yep.
Julie, you do, Lacey? I remember my first transaction, my first seller. And somewhere through the process, they looked at me and they said, "We're your first, aren't we?" And I said, "Yeah, you are." They were like, "We can tell," because I was just so like, I was so into it. I was so every step of the way, I was right there. So, yeah.
That
Talk
enthusiasm.
to the agent, I'm like, oh, you just need to send me a text, cause I couldn't pick up the phone, scared shitless. Yeah.
But no, we're talking about like the first closing though, not the transaction.
Oh. that's
Like
right.
the first time you got to hand over the keys,
Oh.
the first time you got to call them and say, "Hey, your house is sold." This is an amazing feeling. Try to replicate that with every single client that you deal with, right? It's one thing to express to them that you're experienced and you've been down this rodeo before, but don't let that steal their excitement. For them, it's still a massively exciting time. But show them, be excited for them. All right. Schedule your next contact. Agree on a date and a method for the next point of contact, whether it's a follow-up call, a property viewing. Maybe you need another meeting to explain things. Maybe you couldn't get the buyer rep agreement signed. Maybe they want to go talk to other people. I've been to listing appointments where I've had to walk out of there without my listing agreement signed because they have a rule that they got to talk to 3 people and I got to wait.
Yeah.
Right? That happens all the time. So, okay, cool. Well, when do you think you're going to be done with those other meetings? When should I reach back out to you so that I can follow up on that and so that you can tell me I won? Right? Show a little confidence. Why the hell not? And then make sure that your buyer leaves with all the necessary information. Clear, contact information and a clear idea what the next steps are. So make sure that you're just explaining yourself well. Follow-up email, send a thank you email shortly after the meeting. So we have some canned emails for buyers and sellers. If you guys want to use them, Lacey takes advantage of them all the time. How do they work, Lacey?
They respond very good, very nicely.
Very nicely, right? We use ChatGPT to break down every step of the buying process and every step of the selling process with a series of emails for each one of those steps, from initial consultation to the day before we go out and look at a ton of houses, right? And that one says, be prepared for a long day. Make sure you bring some snacks, bring some water. We'll try to stop at a restroom, et cetera, right? Or, hey, we just received an offer. So all that kind of stuff. Or right before you write it, we have emails for everything. So we can easily build an email for this. Include a summary of the meeting, highlighting the key points, the decisions made, and the next steps agreed upon. So you're going to want to put in that email, hey, Trace, it was great meeting you. I'm really got my eyes open for that 3-bedroom, 3-bath house that you're looking for, where you have a place to put your horses or whatever it is, right? If you're touching back on those things, they're going to read that and go, oh my God, they paid attention.
And even
Okay,
if they don't respond, they appreciate it.
100%. Yeah. And you can send an email, you can send it text, you can send it however, whatever you guys agree on is the way to go. You can send both, and they read a text because it says read. Or you can send your emails out and put a read receipt on it. And when they open that email, you'll get notified through your email that they read or opened your email. Okay.
Never heard of that.
What?
Yeah, you can attach a read
Yeah,
receipt
when
to your
you,
emails.
yeah, and then people know, like, well, she read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll let them know that they
So
opened it.
you
and
can't deny that you, didn't. Yeah.
Okay, so file any documents properly. So if you do get that agreement written up, before you even do that agreement, you're probably gonna have a file. Right? So when I go to a listing appointment now, I start a transaction in my zip so that I can take all the listing documents and everything with their name and address and APNs already all on there. So I already have an entire file, even though I'm only going to a listing appointment. You can do the same thing for the buyers. You start a transaction buyer and it's all filled out the right way. So, track it, put it in whatever tracking process you have so you know where you are in each step with them, and then set reminders for yourself for any coming up deadline. So this is just task management. You guys should be pretty good at this by now. And then regular updates. How are you going to regularly update the buyer with new property listings? So we can use Tehachapi.house if they have a account there. You can go into their account and you can set up the search specific, and then it will send them, and you can set the frequency to how often you want to send them that email. Okay, communicate any relevant news or updates that might impact their buying decisions, such as changes in mortgage rates or local zoning laws. I would say mortgage rates, obviously. Hey, guys, did you hear rates just dropped? Might be a good time to make a move right now. Yes.
For the property updates, where are you doing that from?
So I can show you guys how to go into Tehachapi.realestate.com. So we have, it all comes with the CRM called Turbo Leads. We just haven't talked about it much yet, but you can go into Turbo Leads and you can modify their searches. Then maintain engagement, check in periodically, right? Making sure that their needs are still met. If you feel like you're bugging them, then it probably means that you haven't bugged them enough. All right. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you want to be there. What happens if you don't check in periodically enough? They forget about you. They go and sit down with another buyer's agent. How many buyer representation agreements can a potential buyer have?
No limit.
No limit. Absolutely no limit. Okay. So you want to make sure you're adjusting your search as needed, as market changes. Offer continuous education on the buying process. So especially if you're keeping in touch with them, one way to reach out to them may be to shoot a quick video text about the buying process and send it to them, right? It's kind of good information. They may look at it, they may watch it, but more importantly, you're reaching out and they're seeing your face again. Provide resources. So you hear about something coming up, send them an article. You read something online, send them an article. Hey guys, did you see this? This thing here says the Fed isn't going to lower the rates, maybe till October or something due to the election. So maybe if they were thinking that they were going to wait till September, maybe you could say, maybe we should wait till October. I don't know, provide them some kind of information. And then periodically ask for feedback on the search process. How's it going, guys? Are you seeing anything out there that you like? Is there anything that we need to go look at this weekend? I have time. I have time on my calendar this weekend, and I'm coming to you first and asking you first. Do you want to come look at something? There's something that you saw. All right.
It's out of area. Okay, so like I have somebody that's looking for something and then he sent me a listing in Valencia. Am I allowed to do that?
So where does your license allow you to sell real estate?
Anywhere?
Anywhere in California. Are there some restrictions based on the code of ethics for being a realtor? Yes. But does it mean you can't go sell in another area?
No.
No, it just means you better figure out what's going on in that area when you go down to the representative. You better figure out, are there mellow rules? Are there special tax assessments? Is there something about this area that I need to know about? Is there some kind of material fact that's hidden that I'm not aware of? You better call agents and start asking people, hey, I'm going to go show property in Valencia. I need to know what's going on. Yeah, because there are some things in certain areas, 100%. Yeah. Let's see, review buying strategies and goals with the buyer to ensure that they remain aligned with their expectations and market realities. So constantly checking with them, asking for feedback, seeing how situations have changed, right? They're not going to remember to call you to let you know that the husband lost his job or that the wife just got a promotion. Notice how I put the men down and the women up? Checking. Or that they have a new baby on the way. or that they're going through a divorce. They're gonna forget to tell you these things. So you need to check back up with them. All right, so any questions on today's deal here? I know eventually we're gonna be moving into an area where we're gonna have to start doing these buyer rep agreements. I'd like to see us doing them at least halfway through June, beginning of July at latest. I don't want you guys waiting until halfway through July and then scrambling to get this done. I want you to be well versed in this. Start doing them if you can. Start getting people to come in and sit down with you. All right. Start looking at buyers like we look at sellers. Anything? Good, Saren, anything from you?
No, I'm good. That was good information.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Saren, have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Sarah.
Bye.
I'm getting ads for that everywhere now. Me too. It's really annoying.